Today on the show, we talk about Mac versus PC and my favorite church website. Three, two, one. Well, hey there, Pro Church Nation. Roxanne to my left, Jonas to my straight, Brady right here. So great to have you here on the 9th episode of Ask Brady. This is the final episode of single digits.
Whoa.
Next week we'll be at double digits.
That's right.
Episode 10, we're answering your questions on church communications, church media, church in general, young people, millennials, design, social, web. I'm just thinking of all the things that we do. Facebook stories, lots of great stuff. If you want your question answered on the show, you just have to hashtag AskBrady on Instagram and Twitter. In the comments below on YouTube and Facebook, hashtag AskBrady. Today we published a great article. We always record these on Thursdays, and so the article that we published, we always publish a new article each Thursday, is always fresh in my mind. Today, the title of the article is You Can't Afford to Ignore This 2017 Church Website Trend. Big church website trend of 2017. More than a trend, really. I called it a trend because every year we publish a post called You Can't Ignore This this insert year trend for church websites. But really, it's so much more than a trend. It's a platform shift that we think every church should make this year. And it's funny because Brandon got a message from his friend, who I guess is on our email list, and he's like, "You can't ignore this 2017 church website trend." Oh yeah, watch me! Just defiant to the very end. But that's what we do with our headline writing. You know, sometimes those headlines are a little provocative.
Provocative.
Yeah. So check that out, prochurchtools.com. And without any further ado, let's dive into the first question.
So the first question comes from Joseph.
Joseph asks, how should churches use Twitter? Just finished Instagram and YouTube courses. Should we be creating original Twitter content?
So Joseph is referring to a couple of courses inside Pro Church Academy on Instagram and YouTube. Question has to do with Twitter. Let's first talk about, should your church even be on Twitter? I think that in the order of most important platforms, you've got Facebook, obviously number one for churches. Instagram would be number 2. Email, 3. Text, 4. I know those aren't technically social platforms, especially text, but email very much is a social platform if you use it the way that we think that you should. I think that Twitter is going to be, after those at the very earliest. It could be, even after YouTube or, another platform, maybe even Snapchat. So, we only have a certain amount of bandwidth as churches, right? We only have a certain amount of bandwidth as individuals. This is something that's been coming up in my own life. It's like we're moving up to this big launch of Nucleus. There are so many moving pieces, so many things to prepare for. Incredibly exciting, but also incredibly demanding. I've also got, a 2-year-old daughter, a wife. I've got friends and family. I want to take care of myself, and so right now, I'm making decisions, okay? I don't have as much free leisure time right now, so I can't do as many fun things. Not, to be fair, I almost never do fun things anyway. Pro Church Tools for life, entrepreneur living. But, you have to make those decisions. Same thing with your church. You've got, let's say, this much bandwidth. And Facebook is most important, so that's going to take up, the first chunk. And, let's say the first 50% of that bandwidth. And then maybe you want to spend 25% on Instagram, maybe 10 on email, 10 on text. Maybe you've only got 5% bandwidth left. Maybe you don't want to try to force Twitter in there. If you have enough bandwidth that you're like, we've got so much free time on social and I don't know what to do with it, then maybe go and invest in Twitter. If you already have an existing influence and platform on Twitter, then don't feel like you need to stop. But for most churches, I just don't think Twitter is going to be something that they really need or want to invest in. It's that old 80-20 rule, right? The Pareto principle. It's like 80% of the returns we're going to get will probably happen from 20% of what we're doing. So 20% of what I spend my time doing is what's going to return 80% of the results. So if we're talking about, we use this phrase a lot, moving the needle forward. If this is our church's mission statement, how is Twitter going to move the needle forward on what we're trying to accomplish as a church? Would that same time and creative effort that we're going to spend on Twitter be better spent on Facebook, doubling down? Facebook just this week released Facebook stories. I did a complete podcast on Facebook stories. If you go to prochurchpodcast.com, that was released yesterday, as for when this is getting released. Go ahead and listen to that because I talk all about Facebook stories. Maybe that time would be better spent on Facebook stories rather than Twitter. So putting that all aside, let's say you're like, no, Brady, with that being said, we already have a huge platform on Twitter, or we have so much free time that we want to put time into Twitter, or Brady, I'm defiant, and I'm going to do Twitter whatever you say. Great. So then let's talk about the nuances of Twitter. Obviously, the main one is 140 characters. So we personally spend a ton of time on Twitter as a company in the realm of my personal Twitter account. We have an @ProChurchTools Twitter account, but it's just there to hold the handle, really. We don't ever post on it anymore. @Brady Shearer is where all the Pro Church Tools content goes down. What are we doing on there? Well, we're trying to accomplish what we want to accomplish as a company in 140 characters. So what are we trying to do at Pro Church Tools? We're trying to help you seize the 167 hours beyond your Sunday service. So we're posting a lot of quick tips, stuff that we can give to you that's valuable, that's going to help you move the needle forward in that respect in 140 characters. So I'm going to open up Twitter right now, and I'll give you some real examples of what we're doing that I think that will be directly applicable to your church. Sure, you're not helping people increase their creative communication for churches, but the principles and the content frameworks that we're using directly apply. So here's one. Quick tip. Create a Connect card dedicated to recruiting volunteers. Keep it simple and elegant. And it's accompanied by an image of a Connect card that we think accomplishes this. If you're listening via audio, let's do one that's just text completely. Quick tip. Eliminate congregation confusion by creating a single landing spot for every possible next step. We call this the central hub. So 140 characters, we shared an idea that we think that your church should really take hold of, take grasp of, and it's in 140 characters. That's a great idea. You know, Twitter also has video. And because Twitter is almost always getting used on mobile, more than Instagram would be the same, I guess, even more than Twitter, I suppose. But because Twitter is primarily used on mobile, inserting videos is awesome. We do a video here. It's got captions already on there, so people don't have to turn on audio if they don't want. They're able to read and follow along with the video as is. And so really that's the best way to use Twitter. That's the best way to do everything when it comes to communications, right? What is your mission and vision as a church? How can you move the needle forward on that mission on insert platform here? And the way that you reverse engineer that is that you first have to think, okay, this is what I want to do with this platform, but what are the unique nuances and, what's the culture of this platform? So Twitter, obviously, because of the rules of the 140 characters, that's going to create a whole new and unique culture, different from Facebook, different from Instagram. So that's what I would do. Of course, that would probably be for very, very few of you watching and listening, because I think that time is probably better spent elsewhere.
Should churches hold the handle like we are holding our handle? Like we never use our Pro Church Tools account. But should churches even bother, or should they just be like, we're never going to use that platform? Shouldn't happen.
I do that all the time. Every time a new platform comes out, I immediately sign up and grab my handle. After Brady Shearer was stolen from me on both Musical.ly and Snapchat by a 12-year-old girl from Texas, I learned my lesson. I am now Brady Shearer 1 on Snapchat and Musical.ly. I was actually really happy when Instagram stories came out and most of our audience began migrating from Snap to Insta, because I was like, finally, I don't have to use Snap because of my OCD and compulsion over that one extra digit at the end of the handle. So yeah, I would definitely grab the handle. I mean, that's always a good thing in general to do.
Right. All right. So question 2 comes from Cody.
Cody says, our church has really gotten into a good groove of gospel-type, soul-driven music, and we believe that this is where our niche is. We mentioned to the pastoral staff that we should use this type of music, since it sounds like an LA church. However, they don't seem convinced and seem the urban feel of the bumper is more compatible with the multi-ethnic vision. Not to mention, the song that we're using is copyrighted. I guess my question is this: how can a church media team that consists of volunteers with jobs in the digital marketing field be respectful and submissive of the pastors in charge, but at the same time, guide them in the way the digital media should go?
So there's a lot in this question. Obviously, you have the ethnic undertones, and that's kind of the specific example here. I don't think we need to get into the huge thing of wanting to be a multi-ethnic church and then really trying to become that. That's the specific. What this comes down to really is, first of all, never use copyright songs. I mean, that is first and foremost. there are numerous case studies that you can search online and see of record labels going after nonprofits, including churches. Why? Because record labels are desperate. They're going through a massive disruption in their industry. The money that used to come to them is no longer, and they're tightening the strings. And how can they get that revenue back? Well, they can sue people, or they can settle with people after sending them threatening emails and messages and letters. So don't use copyright song. Now, Shai Linne is a Christian rapper, and so it's unlikely that you'd think of whatever label he's signed to go after a small church, but you never know. Like, that's totally within their rights and legal prerogative if they wanted to do that. So never use that. Bad. Don't do that. Just don't. I spent $199 on a song this past weekend, American. So that's like 300 Canadian for us. It was a 1-minute bumper that I did pro bono for my church. And what happened was I actually bought the $50 license from musicbed.com for it because I couldn't find a great song that I liked on Soundstripe, which is always our first recommended royalty-free music site, soundstripe.com, $10 a month, unlimited tracks, best deal ever. No reason that you should be using copyrighted tracks anymore when something like Soundstripe is available. Now, I was doing a really fast edit. We had the baptisms. This was for a baptism video. It happened Sunday. I wanted to then get that same video out the very same Sunday. So I was on a massive deadline. And when I was on that massive deadline, I had two options, pay or time. I went to Soundstripe, couldn't find anything. Went to a site a little bit more expensive, Marmoset Music, I think I went to. Couldn't find anything. Went to MusicBed, the most expensive. Found something pretty quick that I knew would work. That was the perfect timing. And I was like, okay, great. I am on a really short time schedule here, time limit. I'll buy this. I bought a $49 license because that's what I thought was the actual applicable license. MusicBed then got in touch with me this week and were like, yeah, the license you bought isn't cool. Like, you need to buy a more expensive license. They're like, we'll let you off the hook this time, no worries. You didn't know. And I was like, no. Like, let me pay for what, an artist deserves whatever, this costs a lot, but let me pay for the correct license. So they sent me an updated license, $150 extra, $200 total to get the correct. So $200 American for a 1-minute video. That's how much I care about this. So not to just sit here and be like, don't do that. Like, I believe in that as well, spending ridiculous amounts of money for a free video that I made for someone that I earned absolutely nothing on. So that's that. Let's now talk about the main part of this question, which is, how do you get people in charge to listen to you when they're not in your area of expertise? So you've got a group at this church that understand digital marketing, that understand communications, that understand branding. They're like, this song does not fit with what we're trying to do. This direction that we're taking does not fit. When we look at our mission and vision and we're trying to move the needle forward on that, yes, we're making an effort, which is great, but this effort is not going to move the needle forward. It's going to move us in a completely different direction. It's going to move the needle somewhere else. And if you are getting a needle, it needs to be in the right spot, Roxanne. You give blood.
That is the truth. Yeah.
You're a generous individual giving blood. It's in you to give.
That's right.
And if the person withdrawing the blood from your vein misses the vein, that's not helpful at all.
That happened to me last time.
Wow.
Huge bruise. I got a huge bruise from that one.
That bruise is the equivalent to using a Shai Linne song in a place Shai Linne should not be. No disrespect to Shai Linne individually. So this comes down to convincing your pastor that you know what you're doing. This is always tricky, navigating leadership, things like this. We talked in the last episode of Ask Brady about the interesting reality of working in a church. And there's like a triangle. I have invented this triangle right now. On one side of the triangle, you have your existing proficiencies. So you as the digital marketer at your church need to understand marketing. On the other side of the triangle, you also need to be a leader of men and women. You need to be able to cast a vision for your department, for your ministry. You need to be able to put people in the places to succeed, accentuate people's strengths, downplay their weaknesses, move forward, navigate conflict. And then there's the third part of the triangle, random crap, which is stuff that you don't know at all about, stuff that you didn't expect you'd have to do. But because you work at a church with limited resources, with limited volunteers, limited people, limited budget, you are required to do that. And so if you're a pastor, a lead pastor, and this is where it's important, I think, and helpful to put ourselves in their shoes. If you're a lead pastor, you have worked in a church for the longest time where you have been required to do everything. You've been equipping volunteers, perhaps, but at the end of the day, everything comes down to you. And maybe you're good at preaching and theology, and maybe you're good at learning new skills, but maybe you're not good at the leadership side of things. Pastors, for the longest time, have been expected to be able to know and do everything. Like, think about it. For our entire lives, pastors have been expected to be the final authority on science. Pastors don't know anything about science, but when we go to them with a science question, they're expected, and that's just an example, pastors are expected to know everything. So they've been conditioned to be making final decisions their whole life on basically everything. And so now you have a place where the average Protestant lead pastor, 54 years old, we're living through the biggest communication shift in the last 500 years. Things that existed before 2006 did not include Facebook, Uber, Airbnb, iPhones, Dropbox, Spotify, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. These things didn't even exist 10 years ago.
It's true.
And most of our pastors are older. So what we have now is here's the trouble. We've got pastors that expect to make every decision. Pastors that are old, and pastors that do not know very much about the new world that we live in. This is a bad combination, right? And so here's what you got to do. Here's what we always teach. We have a course inside Pro Church Academy called Getting Your Pastor to Say Yes Every Single Time. It's taught by a lead pastor. It's great. Here's what you got to do. First things first, you need to approach your senior pastor or your senior leadership and tie whatever it is that you're wanting to do with the vision and mission, right? So your pastor has a vision and mission. Hopefully, the overarching, this is where we're going as a church. We want to make God known and know God. We want to make disciples and reach the world. We want to love God, love people, serve the world, whatever it is that, it might be at your church. And then you want to tie what you're requesting to do to that. So what you don't want to do is approach your pastor and be like, we should get a new camera so we can make sick vids. And he'd be like, I don't care to make sick vids, bruh. And you'd be like, you just said bruh. And he'd be like, no, I didn't. And maybe that part wouldn't happen. Instead, what you want to do is say, okay, look, I know that our goal is to make disciples and reach people that are far from God. The most dominant way to communicate based on this data and these stories is video in 2017. I think that if we just invested a little bit of money into a camera, we can then share the story of hope in Jesus in ways through video that we can't do right now, and thus accomplish our vision and reach people and help them know God even if they're already far from God. And now, in this instance, it sounds like there's a little bit of like, my pastor thinks we should do A, and I think we should do B. It sounds like they're already past this, where they've already tied what they're wanting to do with the vision. And so they've got the pastor on board with what they want to do. I mean, they're already doing a podcast. It's more about the actual, the logistics. I think we should use this song. Pastor thinks we should use this song. He's wrong because that doesn't match with where we're going at all. This is where it becomes super difficult and super tricky because now he's already on board and now it's just about style choices. It's about choices based on personal preference and taste and stylistic. That's tough. So at this point, hopefully what you have is a little bit of change in your pocket as a leader, meaning you've deposited enough into, the vision and life and, the church that your pastor serves at and in that individual, him or her, hopefully so much that you can say, look, you cannot micromanage this to this degree. We have this vision as a church. I'm helping us with my department accomplish that vision through Project X. You gotta let me do what I'm in charge of doing. And if you're gonna micromanage to the point where I can't even choose the song that I want to be the backing track for the podcast, by the way, your song is illegal, could get you in jail, just a side point, then that's gonna be really difficult. I think this comes down to a hard conversation with your senior leader saying, this amount of micromanagement isn't gonna allow me to do my job. Now, this is coming from Brady, who doesn't really know the situation that well. A couple paragraphs here is better than a sentence, but it's still, I've never even been to Louisiana. So I don't know that culture that you're trying to reach. I don't know what, the culture is maybe that you live in and your pastor lives in. And so this is just general advice. It might not be the best for you. I don't want you to feel like you have to do this, but if it were me, I would probably have a conversation with my senior leadership and be like, look, if I'm gonna be able to do my job well, I can't be micromanaged to this degree. It's like, we hear this all the time. Pastors come and they say, I don't like the graphic you made, it needs more Comic Sans. Now that's an obvious example, right? But someone can come, I don't like the gradients, it'd be nice if instead we had a nice sand background texture or something like that, right? Stylistic things. Your pastor is used to making every decision, but she cannot be making decisions based on style and flavor and taste preference. That's what you were hired or volunteered to do. She's gotta let you do that. And so what you can do is what I like to do is use, anytime I'm trying to persuade or convince, is use data and use story, right? So the data is we cannot use this song because it will end up putting us all bankrupt after we have to pay a settlement to the record label. Here's the data. Bible says, thou shalt not steal. Now look, Old Testament is Old Testament. We're not going to get into that. But maybe we shouldn't steal from this brother in Christ that's trying to make a living as an artist. Seems like there's some good data we could go with. Story time. Hey, here's this article of this church that got sued because they used music inappropriately. That would be an easy way to get rid of this track. And then when it comes down to style and preference, it comes down to that hard conversation of, you need to let me do what I do, and you need to do what you do, or this might just not work. You can't micromanage me to this degree, Pastor. I wouldn't be able to work for too long in that. I'm also a highly autonomous individual that demands decision-making power. So, any thoughts from you on this?
No, that sounds...
Has this ever happened between you and I, where I've forced you to do something that you've really thought was like stylistically...
we disagree. Like, I feel like your style and my style of things are very, very different.
Ooh, really? Tell me more.
Well, even just like, I don't actually do in the videos for Pro Church Tools, but even when you're like, oh man, I really like this, and the guys will come with like 2 options, I will almost 100% of the time pick the option that's the opposite of you. I'll be like, nope, needs more light. Nope, needs more color. Nope, needs more like contrast, just because that's my own preferences.
That's interesting. So that reminds me of a great example. We've been experimenting with some new cameras here at Pro Church Tools and how we shoot. And right now we're thinking about the world of vlogging and the way that vlogs are presented. If you look at most vlogs on YouTube, they are very bright and they're very colorful and they're very, in many ways, anti-cinematic.
Yeah.
Me, loving film, shoot everything cinematic. What is cinematic? It's more muted. The colors are more pastel-like. They're not really like a true red isn't a true red. And the lighting is very, moody. Most vloggers are like fashion vloggers, and lighting is like, a Clearasil ad where everything is 100% white.
Yeah.
And so we start vlogging, and this is a discussion my wife and I have been having. She's like, your vlogs look terrible. I hate them. And I'm like, your vlogs look like they were shot on an iPhone. I hate them. And it comes down to a stylistic choice. Yeah. She likes that really real, colorful look. And I'm like, no, make things look like a movie. Make things look like cinema. And so when it came down to this decision, it was her vlog. And so I deferred to her, which is how things should go. And I found a way to make them look like she wants them to, or at least we're like moving in that direction. But what I did was I also presented her with evidence, which was, look, every movie looks like what I make. What looks like what you make? Dumb people who have cameras that just decided to start vlogging. Not professionals. Like, professionals make movies that make billions of dollars the way I'm shooting video. The way you shoot video, YouTubers, get vlog cameras that are point and shoots and, talk about subscription boxes that they get and then they get affiliates from it or whatever they might do, Not to say one is more valid over the other, but that was like the reasons why I wanted to do it. And so I explained why. She still, because she was in charge, it was her department, I deferred to her because it was her department.
Yeah. That makes sense. All right. Question 3 comes from Blaine.
Blaine asks, what are your top 2 to 3 church sites you think are spectacular and what makes them that way?
Great question. Blaine, we are just putting the finishing touches on our 2017 Best Church Websites post, which is something we do every single year. If you type in church websites in Google, the first response is Pro Church Tools, which is pretty cool. The reason is because we're not selling anything. And we've done, I think this is the 3rd or 4th year we've done like our best church websites of 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. So right now, we've actually condensed the list this year. Last year, we went from 63 in 2015 to 77 sites in 2016. What I did this year was condense it down to my favorite 25. And instead of like having this giant list, what I'm going to try to do is go deeper on 25 great ones rather than, dilute the list and just try to stuff it with more numbers. So I guess what is it, 2 or 3? Great, I've got 2 that I definitely want to share. So the first one is Church on the Move. Church on the Move, and this is less of a stylistic, this is a structure thing. The second one is going to be style. Church on the Move, their main website, churchonthemove.com, is nothing overly spectacular. Very solid church website, but nothing game-changing. What makes their online platform so great is that they don't have one website, they have 2. And we've talked about this so much. This is the Nucleus platform in action. It's your main site for potential new visitors. This is where you talk about, this is what a church experience is like. This is the location. This is the time. This is where and when we meet and everything you need to know if you're new here. The problem if you only have a site like this is that everyone existing in your congregation gets kind of left behind. Not Kirk Cameron style. They get left behind in the way that you go to like the back pages of your website if you want to take a next step. I got to sign up for baptism. It's like, mychurch.com/baptism/sign up. Like, it's tough. What we think you should do is follow the Church on the Move model and have 2 websites. Website number 1, your main site, churchonthemove.com, for your main new visitors that are landing. This is organic search through Google. This is where people that are trying to find your church land. And then have an additional site for your existing congregation. Church on the Move does it, cotm.info. COTM naturally being the acronym for Church on the Move, cotm.info. What's cool about cotm.info is that it's actually not a website, it's actually a web app that's been parked on a domain. And so it functions like an app. It's super great for interacting on mobile, which is where most people are going to be visiting that site. So that's my most favorite site right now, simply because of that structure and framework. I think it's a game changer. We've seen, I've done 20,000 plus announcements for churches over the last couple of years. You see churches sending their congregation to so many different places. Go to the website, go to the lobby, email this person, talk to Pastor Sheila, call this phone number, download the mobile app. And what happens is all of these options are inherently flawed. Each one of them has a problem. And so you can't use just one. You're forced to use multiple. And then your communications and announcements, your promotions, they become so much more, they lack simplicity. They lack clarity because you're like, you want to sign up for baptism? You can go to the lobby. You can go to this website. You can download and sign up on the app or talk to Pastor Bill. And you're like, whoa, that's a lot of different things I could do. What if I did just not do all of them? There's that classic study of in the grocery store where they set up the table of like 25 jams, and then they're like, there was a discount on the jams. I'm going to butcher this example, but there was a discount on the jams, and then they set up another table with like a third as many jams, and more people bought at the jam table that had less jams, like again and again and again. Why? Because you get so many choices, and it's so much easier for your brain to be like, let's just not make a choice at all. It doesn't actually make sense, but that's just the way that our brains function. We see so many choices, and we just go,
Yeah.
Oh, here's even a better one. Classic example. You and your significant other, your partner, what do you want to eat for dinner tonight? Roxanne, what should we have for dinner tonight? What do you want? I don't care. What do you want? You know why this is like such a hard decision to make? And there's that great meme of The Notebook with Ryan Gosling like yelling in what's the other girl in The Notebook's face?
Rachel McAdams.
Oh yeah, right. And she's like, "What do you want?"
What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
The reason that happens is because there are so many options that it makes it difficult to choose. If you had 2 options to eat every single night, McDonald's or Wendy's, it would be a very easy decision because it'd be one or the other. But when you have literally hundreds of options, it becomes difficult to choose. And because you're like, what if I choose the wrong one? What if I'm not confident with this choice? I won't make a choice at all. Right. Nice. So, that's communications 101. So we think every church should have just that one place. The great thing about Church on the Move is if you watch any of their video announcements, which are spectacular on their own, the way that they promote stuff within their church is brilliant because it always ends with visit cotm.info to learn more. Visit cotm.info to sign up. Visit cotm.info to take your next step. Small groups, giving, message notes, calendar, prayer request, contact us. Anything, cotm.info. Makes taking a next step super easy. It's a simple idea, and it seems obvious, but no one's doing it. And it's one of the easiest ways to simplify and clarify your communications, and you'll get more next steps taken as a result. That is website number 1 that I love. That's kind of big picture, macro framework and structure. Stylistically, my favorite website by far, newspring.cc. Newspring.church. the church in South Carolina. I absolutely love it. Biggest reasons are the typography on that site. The typography is amazing. They've got this big, chunky sans serif font for their headline. They've got a beautiful serif font for their characters and paragraph text. The text is a lot bigger on that site than other sites. It reminds me a lot of Medium, the blogging platform. The site is made to help you read super easily. There are so many sites. Our site is like this. The text is so small.
Yeah.
And the problem with small text is then you feel the need to fill more space. And then you write more than is necessary. And especially when you're on mobile, it becomes harder to read. And so I love sites with big text. NewSpring does a great job of that. They also have a modular approach to their site. If you take inventory of every single page on their website, you can tell that it's just the same modules used again and again. So it's like video module plus text with a photo background, and then another page on the site is like that, but it's inversed, and they add additional ones. It's beautiful. It's also a great example of stunning photography. It is not hard to make a church website that is just brilliant. Great typography, great photos. Make your church website show what your church is like. I want to land on your church's website and immediately know, oh, if I attend, this is what it's going to feel like. And you can do that with photos. You can communicate info with great text. Keep the text minimal, keep it short, increase the font size so it's easy to read, simple, and clear.
I like it. All right, question 4 is from Chris.
Chris says, Brady, did you ditch your Macs? If so, what did you put together? Or did you go with Mac Pros?
We have probably close to 10 workstations here at Pro Church Tools HQ right now, and we've got that's not quite even, it's probably 60-40 in favor of iMacs. But we do our biggest video editing kind of heavy lifting on PCs. And the reason for that is, simply put, the hardware on a PC is significantly cheaper than the hardware of a Mac. So I can build a PC workstation with video cards, RAM, hard drives, SSDs, and then the CPU, obviously, kind of like the big, most important factors. I can make all of them twice as big or twice as powerful on a PC for the same price of an iMac or a Mac Pro. Let's talk about Mac Pros for a bit. They haven't been updated since 2014. A lot has changed since 2014 when it comes to the way our video programs and photo editing programs even work. It used to be that the more cores that you had in your computer, the better. So like your video editing platform would run better if you had 12 cores opposed to 8 cores. And then we use the Adobe suite at Pro Church Tools, everything Adobe, so Premiere, After Effects, Photoshop, Audition, Lightroom, etc. InDesign. Adobe changed it where it didn't matter as much how many cores you had. It didn't matter if you had 8 cores or 12 cores. It mattered how powerful the first core was. So it was more important that first core was like insanely good than it was that you had, 800 semi-good ones. And the Mac Pros haven't been updated, since that time. Haven't been updated since 2014. And aside from that, because I could be incorrect on this, I did as much research as I could, but I'm not an expert in, building workstations. We have a guy now, an IT guy, who helps with that. I still don't like the OS of PC. It consistently drags down and bogs down the amazing hardware in our workstations. And so that's something else to consider. You can get an iMac that isn't as powerful hardware-wise, but the software doesn't screw up the hardware like on a PC. Friggin' PC software is always throttling and messing up the hardware inside the workstation. You're like, no, Windows 10, I don't want to talk to you. I hate you. What's her name? Camthera?
I think so, something like that.
Anastasia? Bring back Clippy from Microsoft Word. Like, Clippy knew what was good. Friggin' Camthera is always getting in my head right now, ruining everything. But what I will say about the Mac Pros and the macro trend of Apple as a whole is that they keep releasing things that aren't for pros. They say, hey, do you like our new MacBook Professional? It's got a nice little gimmicky bar that lights up when you touch it. And you're like, wait, but can I have like more RAM? They're like, no, we gave you a light up bar when you touch it. And you're like, but you removed all like the ports. The amount of dongles I need right now to get through life is ridiculous. Who needs 8 dongles? Where's the USB drive? How can I plug in anything, Apple? And so you're seeing this macro trend where Apple continues to innovate, quote unquote, in ways that I as a professional do not care about.
Right.
With that being said, the OS and the software on the Mac is obviously way better than the PC. We're in an interesting time right now where for the longest time, for the last decade, Mac was the clear choice 100% of the time. And now we're in a place where neither is a perfect solution. Mac still has the edge, obviously, but not because of Windows improvement, but really Mac's and Apple's slippage. The discrepancy between the two is becoming smaller. And again, not because Windows has done anything good, simply because Apple has stopped doing as many good things. So no, you do not get props, Windows, for like still not sucking, but because Apple is beginning to suck just a tiny bit, your suckage in the scale and ratio has been diminished a tiny bit.
In my books, they win just because they did not create something called the dongle. That is the worst.
Roxanne's least favorite word in the world is dongle, and so we will find ways at Pro Church Tools to slip it into daily conversations, however necessary.
It's the worst.
So yeah, that's why and how we're doing things here. Heavy lifting, we still use PCs. Everything else is iMacs. I pretty much hate both. Neither seem to work the way I want them to. That does it for this episode number 9 of Ask Brady. If you want your question answered, hashtag Ask Brady, Instagram and Twitter. Hashtag Ask Brady in the comments of YouTube and Facebook. Anything? This episode's gone pretty long. I feel like Jonas is nodding his head. Okay, well, we'll sign off now. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next week.